That's what I thought as well. Must be. I'll have a white on Ellie. Just on the Meva show.
All right. Oh, this is a bit loud. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. Welcome to the second of Estela's breakfast seminars at the Palma Super Yacht Village 2022. My name is James Van Brecht. I handle communications and I write the annual yacht guide that's on all the tables. So that's my task. I'm here with my colleagues, Francesco Giannai, you probably all know, Christy Hollingsworth, Ike Sasse is here too, and we've got a couple of others running around. But anyway, so we ran these seminars for the first time last year, and by popular demand, we decided to bring them back. And of course, it means it's not just about breakfast, and we talk about the market in general terms. We try and get into specifics and make it interesting, and hopefully we can all explore certain aspects of the market, and we may all learn something. But also, it's important that we have some people on the panel who know the subject matter inside out, and even if you're too shy to ask questions during the discussion, you can obviously grab any of them afterwards. It's probably the only time you're going to get their time for free. So, to kick things off, first of all, I need to do the commercial slot, which is thanking all our sponsors who make these events possible, because we're just a tiny agency. So first of all, right, you can see them on the backdrop behind me, but we have Coral Marine, which is our preferred partner in Ibiza, a very excellent agency. Charter Itinerary, who create a very powerful tool designed to streamline the itinerary creation process. Is a thing I've used it. Vistra is a fund administrator and corporate service provider. It provides a comprehensive range of fiscal and operational marine and aviation services. Blue Water, which is the only major company involved in all 5 aspects of the market: brokerage, charter, management, crew training, and solutions. Diaz and Associates, which is a law practice based in Cadiz, offering legal and admin services in Spain, Gibraltar, and Morocco, specializing in all aspects of maritime law. Tax Marine is a specialist marine tax and customs consultancy based in Barcelona, with a track record of more than 25 years of assisting owners and businesses. Jim Marine Yachts and Interiors, which is a specialist wellness designer for the super yacht and prime property sectors, delivering spoke, gym, and spa design on land and sea, which I think I need to use, having seen pictures of me yesterday at this event. Don't we all? Swiss Path Yachting, as part of the Swiss Path Group, a multi-family office providing a range of services around yacht ownership. The Crew Network, part of the Fraser Group, the MLC compliant crew recruitment agency worldwide. Chemo Petroli, which is affiliated with Estela, which is a fuel and lube supplier with its own stations around the Med and part of a worldwide fuel network. Agencia Melia Vives, which is our agency partner in Menorca, in Mahon. Heading that way, we can put you in touch. Antigua Yacht Club Marina and Resort in Falmouth Harbour, which is close to Nelson's Dockyard and offer duty-free fuel pumped right in your berth. AYSS, the Global Super Yacht Network, agency network, of which we are very proud members. And finally, Kingsburg Crew Support, who specialise in everything crew, finance, mortgages, and property. So that's the commercial break done. Time to introduce our esteemed panelists this morning. So to my right here, Anthony Galea of Vistra in Malta. Anthony is Managing Director for Marine and Aviation at Vistra Group. He's been a practitioner in this area for almost 20 years, beginning his legal career in 2001, admitted to the Bar of Malta in 2004. Additionally, Anthony is also president of the Malta Football Players Association. So any football-related questions, maybe Chelsea, you might have some comments about that. Sebastian Diaz Rivas, at the far end, who is a doctor at law in Spain and Gibraltar and is a partner at Buffet Diaz and Associates in Cardiff. He specializes in maritime law with a postgraduate diploma from the World Maritime University in Sweden and also teaches international EU law at Cardiff University. And last but not least, Ian Petts in the middle of Equion Group in Monaco. Ian heads up the global yachting and aviation strategy of Equion Group, which provides fiduciary structuring solutions to private wealth, institutional corporate clients. With more than 20 years experience in financial services, he's held group finance directorships at a number of yacht management and brokerage companies managing large fleets and new build projects, and he is a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales. Welcome, gentlemen. Thanks for coming this morning. Right, so the advertised subject matter is a contentious one. And while we are not going to be explicitly talking about all things sanctioned and Russia, I think what we're going to try and explore is the implications for the market as a whole, for yacht ownership and management as a whole, the repercussions of what we're seeing happening right now pertaining to Russian-owned yachts, or sanctioned owners of Russian yachts. Now, the gentlemen to my right here, all practitioners in law, are probably not able to talk about any yachts by name or any particular situation specifically, but I'm a free agent, so I can do that for them, and then we can talk about I'll do the gossipy bit, and then you can talk about facts afterwards, or speculate about what may happen in the future. So the reason why this topic came up as one thing that people said they wanted to hear about was, it's obviously all over the news currently that we have very large vessels floating around the world, some of them like Vladivostok, which has never seen super yachts in existence. Kaliningrad, we have rumors of Vladimir Putin's own yacht and yachts. There's another one. We all know about Graceful, that's a well-known piece of information in the market that this is somehow connected to Putin, but in the meantime, there's another yacht, 140 meters only, sitting in Italy, and nobody knows who the owner is, but most of the crew seem to be directly involved with Mr. Putin's security. So that gives us all a clue. We have a situation with, for example, the yacht, Motor Yacht A. Motor Yacht A was mid-sea, and in one instance got deflagged by the Isle of Man flag state. They also deflagged Super Yacht, Sailing Yacht A in Trieste. That was not so much of a problem, but of course Motor Yacht A had a problem. Suddenly without a flag, it meant it wasn't insured, wasn't allowed to navigate. Was escorted by, I think, an Iranian war vessel into the Gulf, close to the UAE. And technically it becomes a pirate ship, and now it is allegedly applying for a Chinese flag. We have Motor Yacht Amadea, which is currently in Fiji. Amadea's owner, what they think is the ultimate beneficial owner, is also sanctioned, on the sanctions list. And of course, the problem with these ownership structures, as we all know, there's a flag state, there's an owning company, then there's probably an entity that owns the owning company, and it's a network of ownership network that's designed to be opaque. To the point where the FBI worked with the Fijian authorities to arrest the yacht. It was boarded by FBI agents in Fiji, who then showed photographs to all the crew members individually, asking them to pick out who the owner was, or who the boss was. We have a situation also that the captain of Amadea, British captain, was on his way to Fiji to take charge of the yacht, was changing planes in Los Angeles, and was halted there and deported from the country, from the US, not allowed to return for 5 years, just for being the captain of a sanctioned vessel, or an arrested vessel allegedly owned by a sanctioned owner. All these situations, there are many other yachts. I can go through them all because I have the dubious pleasure of sitting in front of social media all day long, and my timeline is full of Russian yachts and gossip and information as to what's happening. Now, to let you get a word in edgewise, this is going to have implications for flag states, for registries, for presumably the authorities are going to want to be able, in the future, we're not talking about Russia now, but any other situation, any other person or company or country involved in some kind of conflict or some kind of fraud case or a money laundering allegation, They're going to want to be able to point at an asset and say, who's the UBO? And in the case of Dilbar, for example, it's been well reported in the FT, so I'm going to take that as fact that the UBO is actually Alisha Usmanov's sister. So is he still a UBO? We don't know. In law, this has complications. So where is this going to go? Discuss. Who'd like to go first?
Shall I get
If-
Take the microphone. I think, can you hear me now?
Should come out.
Yeah, I think it's a developing situation, and each yacht's very different. But the way the sanctions have been written as well, it's on the definitions, and it's not just the sanctions we have to look at, because, for example, I'm a UK chartered accountant. My institute came out straight away at the beginning of the war, put a Ukrainian flag out outside the institute and said, you have to act in the spirit of the sanctions. What does that technically mean? The lawyers can give us more information on that, but also you have to consider the definition of a Russian. I could be a Russian if all my business interests are in Russia. So it's even though I'm nationality British, I could be construed to be Russian.
If your pets are,
Yeah.
they can do this by pets. Yeah. So you say, where do you live? Well,
Yeah.
my dog, or your dog is in this. It has happened in one of these cases, where they identify the domicile by saying, okay, that's where your dogs are.
Yeah.
So that's your home.
Yeah.
Finished.
So, yeah. And then you've got connected to and operated by. These are very wide definitions. And also the way we structure yachts over the years, there's fractional ownership methods of owning a yacht. One of the members might be Russian, the other 20 members or 8 members might not be. So there's lots of different parts of the law. And also every morning we have to wake up and we have to think about the multi-layers of the sanctions, because there's the US sanctions to consider. We have US shareholders, so I need to consider those all the time. I'm a UK national. I'm resident in France and I work in Monaco, so that's 4 or 5 layers of sanctions we have to check every day. And it's an evolving situation, plus Europe all over that as well. And then also where the yachts traveling, because they're mobile assets. And it's also a developing situation because, yes, you've got your owner, you check where he's from. Every day we're running the screen on him, but his boat is being chartered, and it's being chartered by different nationalities. That's a dynamic process, and it's also a dynamic process of cash flows. So he might make a deposit. He might, in some cases, he's already made a deposit, then he gets put on the sanctions list, or someone associated with him is put on the sanctions list. So 2 weeks later, that money is frozen, you can't move it. So.
Could you just explain, because I understand that I'm not an expert when it comes to yacht ownership, how this is structured, but there is a distinct difference between a commercial yacht that's being chartered and one that's really private in terms of ownership or reporting obligations. Is that right? What's the key difference? Maybe Anthony would like to explain.
Well, in terms of reporting obligations, nothing really. It's more the way how you operate the yacht. But in terms of the KYC, I would say there's not a big difference between a private yacht or a commercial yacht. The boat reportable, you have to check, as Ian rightly said, on both of them. What I would like to really discuss with everyone this morning as well is the economic part of it. I thought that was really interesting because the truth is what Ian rightly explained is going to make doing business with the Russians or with all of our clients more expensive, because we're going to have to check on them, who they are, whoever they are, just to be sure that they are not subject to the sanctions or part of the sanction list. More importantly, we now know what the sanctions are. What we don't know is what's going to be the aftermath once hopefully there's a ceasefire. What's going to happen? It's not going to stop here. There's going to be a lot more to think about on both sides of the fence, because we also have to think what will be the effects from the Russian side. Will the Russian clients want to come to Europe to build their boats? Will the Russian clients want to come to Europe to charter the boats? Can they flag in Europe any longer? You know, we have a lot of nice Malta flags over here. I'm from Malta, so I always enjoy seeing that. But the truth is, will we be able to offer that?
Well, because one day, just hypothetically, we could be talking about Kazakhstan one day, China one day.
Absolutely.
So it's more, it's not necessarily, even though the conversation obviously is very Russia-centric, it's more the implications down the road, either for in a conflict or on an individual level.
Now, you even have to consider, James, will they be able to do that? Because there are going to be sanctions from the Russian side as well to their nationals, to people earning their wealth in Russia. Will they be able to come to build a yacht in Europe? Will they be able to come and charter a boat in Europe? We know of a lot of the fleet going to Dubai. Southeast Asia is a reality, and therefore, in the next foreseeable future, will these boats go down there? And what implications will that have for Europe? Of course, the Russian market is what, 10%, 12% of the fleet? For the chartering it, I think it's a bit more, 15, 16%. It's not huge, but it does have an impact, and we all know that it's what's on the top end. So it's going to affect our operators, and I think that's a nice discussion for today, for everyone to contribute. So I'll stop here and leave Sebastian for it.
Sebastian, Little Bird tells me that you're having some first-hand experience at the moment.
What?
Yeah, you're having some first-hand experience, which I'm sure you can't talk about specifically, but in general terms, maybe you can explain how you see things from a strictly
You
legal
have
point.
told, from my side, to not to speak about the country. We are not going to do this. I'm going to speak about another country too. That we have here in the office, and it's Venezuela. It's Venezuela. Venezuela, there are in the past, not before the invasion, but in the past, we have got from overfacing U.S. government administration a list of 5 persons and interest. And in a certain point, Biden, after the invasion, they have gone to Venezuela, and now Venezuela is right and they're back. And there is also, I'm fully agree with them that we have not a fair legal regime established now. And we have to be, honestly, in our office, we are now dealing with one matter of a merchant ship that has the right to come to the EU waters in Barcelona. However, the flag is a EU flag, only because of the cargo has been carried before the invasion by a foreign country ship flag. And what is going to happen for the exposure for the crews, for chartering agency, for agents? We have to check every day in the KYC questionnaires many rules. Even it can change from one moment to the other. In the exposure that you have required, I'm fully agree with my colleagues that especially for private yachts, crew members and captains is really complex because their position is absolutely weak in the sense that the yachts, you know better than me, is always an extension of their homes, of the family relationships of the owners. And you can have criminal liability because we are speaking about cooperation. We are speaking about that if we are in Spain, we are by law, between brackets, only we have to fulfill the EU regime, the EU regulations. But we have got experience that we have obtained the international cooperation from the USA, and some yachts have been arrested. And the crew has gone arrived to the courts.
Well, I was going to ask you, because another yacht that I didn't mention before is Tango. Tango is here in Mallorca and was not just arrested, has actually been seized, because most of the yachts we're talking about are under arrest, or effectively under arrest by not having a flag, which is, again, a different legal status. But of course, there's an issue with, hold the microphone, please, Sebastian. This is for you. This question is for you. Now, it's also been reported that the US is planning to sell Tango, Yacht Tango, which I can see being a massive legal minefield that's going to drag on for years. So who's going to want to buy this vessel? Who knows? But the vessel's in Spain. But in Spain, there's something particularly different about ownership structures from the rest of Europe, correct? In the sense that when a yacht is first, or when an asset is first registered to a company, the initial holder is declared, but as soon as those shares are transferred, that becomes anonymous. So in Spain, it's not easy at all to establish who the legal owner is of the owning entity, or who the shareholders are of an ownership structure. So,
well, no, I'm not particularly agree in the sense that when we have any legal step in Spain, we have to get a notarial statement of who is the ultimate beneficial owner who owns over 20% of the shares of the company, direct or indirect.
When it's held in Spain.
Yes, but the problem is that it's only a notarial step. And even the representative, the legal representative of the company in Spain, if it's a company that's in Spain, has the information that has been provided by. And the problem that you told is not especially this, that in the register of funds of Spain is only registered the initial shareholders. And the rest of the movements are not in the register. That's it.
But is there a beneficial owner register? Because of course there's a rule now about it.
Yes, it's a beneficial owner register, and even in the execution of one EU directive, it was filed between the register of companies, the register of companies, and the notaries. In your time it was in with the notaries, and now it's in the register of companies, and when you have to settle the accountancy each year, there is one point for the ultimate beneficial owner. And the problem is if it's going to be disclosed or not. Of course, with a court order, yes. But for private, I mean.
There's a big fight, isn't there, at the moment? Sorry. There is, as far as I know, you're right, because this beneficial owner register, which exists in all of Europe, it's not implemented everywhere. For example, Cyprus don't have it, as far as I know, even though it's a new directive. There is a big struggle between a right to privacy, and right to have your name private and your assets private, and this beneficial owner register before all the sanctions came out. The question now is, as far as I know, there's even a judgment, or rather there's a claim underway in the European Court of Justice, which has the potential to change everything, because I think it's the Dutch who questioned the right of the European Union to issue such a directive in the light of the European Human Rights Charter. So it's a big issue, absolutely. But at the moment, there's a directive, and everyone in principle should know. What I think is that it becomes really difficult because at the end of the day, there's a lot of reports, for example, who are asking us nowadays for a declaration on who's the owner. Can you just declare that the owner is not subject to sanction, or do you actually have to say everything? And that's another one for you, because you're very much involved in these things. Will it then extend after the sanctions are gone, or after the conflict stops, to everyone? Because then it can become a tax tool in the hands of the authorities to just splash out who the owners are. That's a big issue.
I completely agree.
It's inevitable because authorities love nothing more than a land grab, and what you see now, there's a precedent. Once the precedent set, I see new rules coming down the pipe very rapidly.
Yes, I'm seeing that coming.
Before a plane takes off now, it's quite common now to declare who the UBO is, that he's got no Russian connections, that it's not controlled by the Russians. And we have to make a statement that has to be signed by myself as a chartered accountant. So I'm taking the risk of proving that. So my KYC as well has got to be 110%, and I've got to update that KYC all the time, because 1 minute the boat can be owned by a certain person, but that ownership structure can change quite quickly. And there's often layers of ownership structures. We might have half the structures with me. Anthony might have the other half of this bit. So it's the KYC component is developing very quickly.
And it makes doing business so much more difficult and so much more expensive. That's the end of the day, what's going to go back to the clients. Because we already struggle every day of the day, to collect the KYC as it is now. Before we start providing the services to our clients, who are people who are, let's say, not used to being asked so many questions, we need to ask for it. And then what about the banking? We all know well that it's so tough to open a bank account nowadays. How much harder is that going to become with all these sanctions? And it will not only affect the owners, it's affecting the crew. As we heard yesterday from John, opening a bank account for a crew is so difficult. It's just going to become worse, unfortunately. I know it's a bit doom and gloom for the morning, but that's it.
You're going to see the role of compliance officers going to be one of the top roles in all the yachting companies, and right across, because it's not just a tick box exercise anymore. There's the source of funds is such a wide question, and where that came from, improving it through the years. Right, a compliance officer now will want to see the original transaction of where the money came from for the source of funds. That could have been years ago. So it's the source of funds, and it's have you met the client? Where did you meet them? All of that's got to be tracked, and it's an evolving process. There's an annual review of that process. So it's no longer just passport proof of address. We want dig right down to those sorts of funds. Where did it come from? And
So here's another element that we haven't yet covered. In the Netherlands, of course, there are 12 yachts under arrest. And 2 of them are in the water, 10 of them are in build. So we know that you get involved in the project even before it gets built. So where's KYC in that element, that side? Who owns the yacht? What's the payment schedule like? What claim does the owner have over a yacht that's in build but not yet fully paid up? It's not yet been flagged. So what's the situation with that? Do you know, or can you speculate?
Yes, absolutely. We know about it. We don't just speculate in the sense that the yard nowadays, most yards ask for the KYC. So they're going to know who the owner is. And if they're sanctioned or on the sanction list, they're going to be stuck. I think the biggest problem we have now is that they cannot accept their money anymore. Because that's the big issue. And what does that mean? It means that effectively the yard is going to name the owner to be in default. So it's not the other way around, but the owner who has a valid contract is not going to be in a position to pay up. Not because he doesn't want, but he cannot do that. Because all the yards are, all the big yards nowadays are in Europe, and they cannot accept the money from these sanctioned persons. So that means you have a defaulting situation. So we have a yard which is stuck with an asset. It can call the default, it can resell it, but and then there's all going to be a host of legal claims being done, possibly by the owner, saying, listen, is this, for example, force majeure? Because I was not able to pay. It's not that I didn't want. It's not that I don't have the money, but I had a force which is extraneous from me. That's the definition of force majeure. Not exactly, but anyway, that impeded me from paying. Do I have a legal right to make a claim on that yacht? But what is the yard going to do? It has a asset over there which is worth 50 million. It's put in its money in it, and it cannot resell it. Well, what's going to happen over there? Let me just add another fun element to the whole picture, is inflation coming up because of what's happening in Europe at the moment. The price of steel is going up. The price of the supply of all the materials is going up. So keeping that yacht over there, finishing it off, now on speculation because you want someone to sell it, it's going to be more expensive for the yard. Who's going to pay for that? So it's a very, very difficult situation that's coming up, and that's why I said doing business is a bit more expensive. I think, it's nice having this debate because it's the first time we're thinking about what are the solutions to it. There's no easy one, that's for sure.
I think it would be really interesting to see what happens in Italy, because their laws are the most advanced on association with the mafia and confiscation of assets from corrupt individuals. And there's even if your income isn't congruent with the assets that you hold, there's even mechanisms in Italian law that can go up.
So in the UK, you've got unexplained wealth orders now. Sebastian.
I was going to have not an option of a yacht in Sotogrande, that was based in Sotogrande, about a corruption case in Spain, and finally it has been bought by, I think it was a Dubai hedge fund. Between brackets, who is going to be the ultimate individual owner. And the matter is that has been sold after 6 years by the 10% of the original value. Is what we're speaking about, the matter of what is happening, and absolutely, if there is only that, or all of you smell anything else, take in mind that the authorities are going to interpret in the worst scenario.
Just to add to that, I think to speculate maybe, to come up with solutions for everyone. I think one solution could be that actually the governments take a further step and say that they can now start appropriating the asset. Because the one way that it can be solved to unblock the situation is that the government takes over, so as you mentioned it earlier, and sell the asset themselves. Because when the government will be selling it, they will guarantee title. And at that stage, obviously, someone buying it, you mentioned that before, should be able to claim a clean title and the ability to navigate with it without having the previous owner making a claim. Because the claim of the previous owner, in principle, should not anymore be on the ship, but it should be against the government. Yeah. And then, let them fight typical income, I would say. So that might be a solution. And it's also a solution because, of course, there's a lot of costs that are going to be created until you get to that stage.
Well, this is contentious, of course, in
Yes.
the case of Sailing Yacht A in Trieste, where it seems the local population is in uproar because, of course, the Italian state or the Italian taxpayer is currently paying to maintain this incredibly iconic
I
yacht.
saw about that.
Sebastian.
Yes, this is absolutely true. In Gibraltar, yesterday was published in the official gazette a resolution by which the government has allowed the bank that has begun the legal action for the repossession, as it has told the owner couldn't pay for the mortgage, and they have to interpret and establish a legal measure to allow the bank to give money to the crew and to the maintenance to the interim agent that has been made. So,
The bank would have been in breach of the sanctions if it paid the crew.
to circumvent this, the yacht has been allowed to call the port because of there is an arrested order required by a Western bank in a repossession order. It's an interesting case that it established absolutely everything. And another point that we have to take in our mind is that all payments in the market, most of them are in US dollars. And US dollars, if any transaction is in US dollars, the US rules allow the jurisdiction. It's an attractive point of jurisdiction for the US jurisdiction.
It's wire fraud.
Yeah, you have to take one eye always in this business, looking at the USA sanctions or what could happen, because they can freeze your money. All the US transactions can be freeze, and you say you give the service, you rent up your best, and they freeze the money when you have to receive the call.
So where does another googly in the whole thing is, of course, many brokers, some are here. We know that they charter yachts to clients now accepting cryptocurrency. And we know cryptocurrency is another different ballgame in terms of, I mean, by definition, it seems to be, to me, my personal opinion, a giant Ponzi scheme full of dirty money. It's a money launderer's dream. And in fact, there are machines at Carrefour here in Palma de Mallorca where you can put cash in and take cryptocurrency out. So there's your freshly laundered, freshly minted Bitcoin. And then you can go to your broker and it doesn't matter where the money came from. So where does cryptocurrency sit? Is this situation going to halt the idea of crypto and yachting in its tracks?
It's a double-edged sword because actually the Bitcoin is on blockchain. There's mechanisms of finding out where that Bitcoin came from. So the yacht deals I've seen with Bitcoin, sometimes they're not accepted to go through by, for example, BitPay or the platforms. Because prior to the deal, about 2 weeks before, the platform will go through the coins, and if they've been tainted in the past by known or allegations of fraud, some platforms won't accept those Bitcoins. So although there's a lot of reputation about Bitcoin being a bit of a dirty coin, actually the professionals can go through and see where those Bitcoins came from. So in a way, it might clean up some elements of the industry.
Because I think the verification process is a lot more complicated now for crypto. They've actually gone in a lot further. So you have to get more than actually on the banking stance.
Yes.
Crypto is actually much more open than banking.
There are many different currencies that have different rules, actually. So absolutely, it's not only Bitcoin, it's the blockchain, obviously.
Let's call it crypto. Let's not besmirch one particular.
Exactly. And there are some good ones, and there are obviously some others which are less cautious. Let's put it this way. So yes, you can have decent deals, but you can have bad ones, and of course, as always, you have to do your checks. That's at the end of the day. So as I was saying earlier, it's just going to make things more expensive. But no, I don't think crypto should be affected just by this.
And on the expense, it's not a recommendation of mine to use it. Because the last deal I saw go through, the purchase of the yacht, you have the platform fee 1%, and you have the spread of the Bitcoin to euro is about another 7%. So the purchase of the yacht, you lost 8% in just the transaction costs of doing the deal. So.
Well, we know buying yachts is expensive business.
Yeah, but if somebody is going to raise this 8% on top of the price, perhaps it is because there is another interest.
Sebastian, another angle we haven't yet covered. We've worked with you closely on many legal aspects, but one of which, of course, are crew disputes. Now, in the context of this, there's obviously a force majeure situation with some yachts. You have crew instantly dismissed. In the case of, for example, the captain on his way to Amadei in Fiji, what recourse to the law do crew have, do you think, in the current situation? And is this going to have an impact on, if let's say a crew member came to you or a recruitment company saying we need to redraw our contracts? Because clearly, if I'm a crew member or a captain, aside from reputational risk, the risk I could have of being sanctioned myself by the US or at least prevented from obtaining a B1, B2 visa, which severely
Or
hampers
by
my
any other country.
any country, absolutely. If this had, I think obviously the sad thing is always this whole situation is all the crew that are totally innocently working away. There's about 4,000 crew members estimated to be affected by the current situation. So,
Well,
what would you advise a crew member saying, I'm going to join this yacht? Let's say it's a high level, it's a very high profile yacht, it's a very high profile position, high profile person in the industry, and they want to check their contract, say, am I covered if something happens like this happens to my owner?
we have, from my point of view, this is a very interesting question. There is two key points for me. First of all, in development of the MCL, we have, and outside, in a certain yachts, it's compulsory the insurance to cover the repatriation and the wages of a certain period. The crew members has to be sure that the insurance is an insurance that is not inside the fine list. Because if it's inside the fine list, it's a Russian or a Venezuelan or any other nationality insurance, it's no guarantee.
Invalid, yeah.
It's no guarantee because they are not going. They can pay for you, but they can pay for you in rubles in Russia or in Venezuela, but not in a marketable currency. This is one of the points that I think that the crew has to take in account when they are going to enter into a labor contract. Additionally, if they are going to receive their wages in US dollars, what we have thought about, keep one eye in the big brother of the States because they can freeze. And this is all the point that you have to fulfill. And in case of they can have any risk, especially for private, that's not chartered. My advice is to do not enter in the contract.
And I think one problem as well is some boats, not ours of course, but some captains are getting a lot of cash on board just in case their boat gets sanctioned, and that presents all sorts of issues of security risk, fraud risk, purchasing of things, cash disappearing, and the security on the yacht. If you've got to keep 6 months worth of wages on board a boat, it's a problem, and there's scope for a lot of fraud there.
To address your point, James, you are well guarded if you are in that situation to actually take court action against the owner and get a dismissal and whatever. The problem is you can get a judgment, you can leave it there, but it's not enforceable at the moment in the sense that if the owner could not pay you now, the next year he's not going to be able to pay you because, as we said before, it's still a big issue. So you're going to end up spending money not to be able to collect that money. Because even though the judgment will be delivered, and you probably win the case because you've not been paid, then it's not enforceable. On the other hand, my advice would be, and I'm sure Sebastian would agree, get the judgment, leave it there, because the judgment can be enforced maybe in 10 years' time. And who knows that, things might change. Not in the short term, but definitely in the longer term. So my recommendation would be still take action. Obviously, be careful about the cost, because at the moment, it's, you can get the judgment, it will be the best judgment, but you can just frame it and do anything much with it.
But before you sign the actual contract in the first place, is check, should crew members now be looking for clauses pertaining to, okay, you're going to pay me in dollars, and if you can't pay me dollars for whatever reason, you're going to pay me in euro, and otherwise you're going to pay me in Malaysian ringgit, or you're going to pay me in...
Yeah, but if they cannot pay for you in US dollars, as example, in euros, the matter is that you are cooperating to circumvent the fines. You know, and the problem, I'm
The
fully
other
agree
is,
with
I
you.
think that's the.
It's going to be a judgment only business for lawyers, not for them. The real problem that we have is that the risk, and we have got some other clients in our office, in logistic agents, that they have received money before the invasion, as example, and they cannot return the remaining funds because you are not allowed to do it, or you cannot receive the funds. In one particular case of a worldwide Japanese corporation, the matter was that the client has a ultimate beneficial owner in a small percentage that was from a foreign country, and until this percentage was not sold, the money was not unblocked, and they received the payment, and believe me, it was a huge amount of money. So we have to be very careful with this. The process that we can establish is correct, but at the end of the day, if we do not have the way of enforce them, they can settle the money in a bank account in the country, so they can take it in dollars or in whatever currency. But is it available for the crew member that they want to have the money to live?
But I think for all of us in the yacht industry, we have to ask the big question of who do we work for? Because right down from the deckhand, are you happy to look your mother in the face or your daughter in the face? I'm working for an arms dealer who owns a super yacht. Is that the sort of person you want to work for? Like with all our clients now, we can do the KYC and they might be an acceptable client, but we've got to look at the headline test of that client and you are sat next together on the front page of the Daily Mail. Do you really want to have that business risk and its reputation risk, association risk?
Well, Daily Mail's perhaps the wrong example because anybody could be, any of us could end on the front of the Daily Mail tomorrow. Anybody have any questions out there? I mean, I'm sure there must be some people wondering what the heck is going to happen down the pipe when you're involved in yachting, either as a crew or as a broker or legal advisor. Any questions for the panelists?
Well, just one, sorry. A quick one. Just where will crew stand now? Obviously, where will crew stand now? Obviously, they've been on board and they're sanctioned. So where would they stand? Because I know, not the name of the boat, one of our clients, they haven't been paid in 2 months. They're still on the boat. It's been taken over by a bank. So where do they stand? Because obviously they've got no income. They can't leave the boat. They've got to stay there. What's their option?
And it's a sanctioned boat. You say,
It's a sanctioned boat.
My personal opinion is, why stay there? Because the truth is, it's not going to be solved any soon at this stage. So cut your losses. The season's coming up. Get a new boat, because you already know it's a difficult situation, and I don't think there's going to be an easy solution, as you said. If you owe money, of course, as I mentioned, try and get a judgment, but don't spend too much money on chasing bad money. Going on for the good one.
Register your claim.
Where is
That's
the
it,
yes, absolutely. Where is the yacht?
Understand?
Yeah, no. The only thing is, can you arrest it?
Well, basically, it's going through a process at the moment because the bank is taking back ownership, the American bank is taking back ownership on it. So that's why they're in situ. It is going through, so then they will be paid. But obviously, they won't reckon get back payments, and so that's a bit of a fun one.
If it's an agency, you are privileged maritime credit, and you can ease the recent remaining funds after the mortgage, or to speed up the private sale. If you register it, you can try to get the money back, at least part of the money. And try to pronounce to the agency to not increase the losses as it may can.
I was just wondering, is there somewhere where you can obtain a up-to-date international sanctions list?
For which country?
Like international.
There are published lists all the time. The problem is that, as you're saying, you have to check them nearly daily. There are websites, there are software that provide that service, but again, it's about researching. Unless you subscribe to one of these websites or service providers. I won't give names because obviously it's marketing. But yes, you can do that. You're best guarded to go through that system because the sanctions are changing and every jurisdiction is taking his own position day after day. So unfortunately, it's not easy and it costs a little bit, but there are.
In the supply chain of every yacht, the yacht manager probably have either
Yes,
absolutely, or money check, or the legal team for the yacht would have it,
Or us as
CSPs like
a
us.
CSPs like us, we run it every, it's about 12 or 24 hours. We're running the screen on the charters, the yacht owners. The big question going forward though is, because legally we have to do it on the charterer, but it's the passenger list that can change right up to the last minute. So me, in the spirit of being a chartered accountant, I would check the passenger list as well. But whether it's going to be handed over to me to do that or not is the question we're
But
currently
that's the
asking.
full list.
Yeah. And also, there's a big question. Have you ever seen, like, if you look at a Russian passport, it's written in Russian. Translate the name Yuri, it can be translated about 3 or 4 different ways. And so when you're reading the sanctions yourself, there can be 4 different interpretations of how Yuri translates into our alphabet, because the Russian alphabet's different. So there have been Russians that slipped through the sanctions net just because people translated, for example, the word Yuri in a different way, and it got through the sanctions list for 2-3 years, and then suddenly someone rings the alarm bell and says that's been mistranslated, and the guy is right there on the sanctions list, and they've been doing business with it for 2-3 years. So.
Obviously, there's a difference between the private and the commercial yachts. So on the private yachts, who are the guests of the owners? That's absolutely impossible to keep track of.
Until the same day, when you receive the cruise, that's it.
The question is, usually we receive it not the day of the charter, but
Same
after the charter's done.
Yeah. And,
How can
and,
we check?
and also for you, the US government file leaks website is reasonable update for your data.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the panel? Any other comments, observations that you have that I think the trend seems to be that I think authorities are going to demand transparency. As an industry, we're probably going to need transparency. In an industry and individuals, who the last thing they want is transparency.
Yeah.
So,
In a way, in a way, it has been a good element because we're getting closer to our client, and legally we have to really know the client. It's not just I've got his passport. I have to know what he does, how he acts on the yacht, all the different parts of his business. You really have to know your client, almost be part of their family now,
That
and
part is
yeah,
easier for us.
and you become their trusted provider. So it's quite good in our industry because these laws are coming through. We're getting a lot closer to our client, and they can no longer say, "I'm just sending the passport to people address." I have a reason to. I have to report to my compliance officer. How is their business doing this year? And then by doing that, also it's great for my business development because I can ask the questions: how's your jet? How's the villa in the south of France? And I have to update my client profile every year, and I have to map out what assets he's got, his business, and it's a conversation opener.
Or her business.
Or her as well, of course.
we are completely
in
gender
between.
neutral here.
James, I was trying to think about some positive finale, for it all, because
Yeah, that'd be great. 'Cause some uplifting
Some
finish.
uplifting. I thought of 2. One is obviously, I think charter grounds or the business grounds. I've been to Dubai recently. There's a nice reality over there. It could really be the case that it becomes one of the jurisdictions for keeping big boats over there, thanks to this change, let's say. Same for the Southeast Asia. It's a reality. It's always been there, isn't it? But it never took off. More importantly, I think the real positive note of everything is that the European Commission and all the big jurisdictions in the world have said, look, this is really this opportunity to move from fossil fuels to the renewables. And a lot of money has now been granted to R&D and a push over there. And possibly this will contribute to that change, to that quick change or a quicker change, even in the technologies used of super. So I think that's perhaps one positive thing that will come out of it, that we can move a bit closer.
Potential silver lining here.
Potential.
Final comments?
There's another second one as well after once the war's over, hopefully, and relations improve. I think this will be the birth of the Russian construction of it's definitely for the jets. They'll start producing their own jets, and whether that happens in the yachts as well, it could be a positive. So we had Timmerman, we had some other Russian yards before. I think you'll see
A few more years.
a few more yards because we're going to be hurt for 3 generations. So that is going to, if you empathise with the Russian head, he's going to want to buy Russian products. going forward, just as Americans want to buy American products and Europeans European products. So you see that nationalisation. I think it could be well be the start of the Russian super engine. Definitely in the jets, they're saying that's what's going to happen.
Interesting.
Yeah, even however I'm a lawyer, I'm trying to give a positive view. I think now we are in the worst scenario possible. Why? Politically, it's very nice that, as example, Spanish authorities get one medal with the USA when they freeze a chip here in international cooperation. If you go to the newspapers, our industry, yachts, is a luxury industry of corrupted people that they try to prove that. This is the picture. It's not true, but this is the picture that the common population have. And so I think that we are going to learn every day altogether. And what we know now is that all authorities are very concerned. In the case that I told you, where we had a breakfast in Barcelona, that we are waiting for the answer. Spain now is waiting for the EU resolution and the EU legal reports, because they are trying to be monitorized, and this is worldwide. The transparency current is not possible to stop. And all the countries, especially the UK, you have the reference UK, and the UK territories under the umbrella of the British Financial Commission, the registered beneficial owners are setting up very, very, very fast and in a good way. So we expect that in a few, I think it's in a medium short term, we are going to go back to a safe regulation to operate and to continue earning money and living our lives.
I hope this one. I did invite a couple of flag states to participate. We could make it happen. But obviously, that's another issue now in terms of flag states. We saw the Isle of Man acting unilaterally, as far as I can tell, on sort of very high-profile vessels. So, what about the choice of flag state? And where do flag states sit in this involved in this process?
Flag states have a very difficult situation, I would say. Again, I think, first of all, you have to see the flag, whether it's part of the EU or not part of the EU. Because, of course, if you're a flag state part of the EU, you need to follow EU directives. There's no way out of it. Same for the US. So every flag state has to follow their government's position, number one. And there's no room for interpretation in the sense that if a regulation is going to come out of Europe, and the European and the EU says you cannot flag a Russian ship, they have to follow. There's no way out of it, and vice versa as well. So if there's no regulation saying that, the question on more than the flag states, I think, is for the ports as well. Will the action follow what the UK did, and will Europe stop, let's say, Russian flagged vessels entering European ports? Absolutely. That's the question to be asked, because I think, again, we all hope for the ceasefire. The question is, it's not going to stop at the ceasefire. This situation has been created between, let's say, the US and the EU and Russia on the other side. The flag states are, let's say, are not, they have no say in it in reality, because they have to follow the government's solution. Will there be maybe another question to us? Will there be new flag states coming into the fray, which will be net gainers? There have already been. You know, you have already a number of flags. You also have reflagged. I would tend to think that Singapore, for example, and Hong Kong would be, again, big in the shipping world, but never have been that important in the yachting world. Will they be revalued? I think yes. But that's as much as we can say. Okay.
I think there'll be a disaggregation as well of the real quality flag states. So along here you see a lot of the Malta ones, the Isle of Man, and the last two I've done a British owner. She said, let's just go with the British flag. Patriotic reasons, and the reputation was she wants to go around and be accepted everywhere and have complete transparency on the boat. So she says, I'm British, I've got the British flag, and we did a French flag as well. The gentleman said, it's really nice, we can do the Yet scheme and all the other schemes, but actually at the end of the day, let's just make life easy and put a French flag on the back.
It looks like clarity is a long way off. It's going to run and run, and who knows, maybe this time next year we'll be talking about it again. I'm going to wrap it up here, more or less out of time. I hope you agree it's been a very interesting discussion. So I'd like to thank you, gentlemen, for your contributions. Thank you all for coming. And if you have any comments, observations, feedback, please let us know. Any suggestions, things you might want to hear about in the future. We're pretty proactive when it comes to social media and doing events. So let us know, and we'll put it out there. I suspect this will get quite a lot of traction online because it's one of these discussions that it's a live situation. None of us really know how it's going to pan out, but of course it's going to affect the industry. We know this for sure. So thank you, everybody, and enjoy the rest of the boat show today and tomorrow.
You said it to me. Oh, brilliant. My rucksack. Right. Yeah, I'll go back into the show. I'll be here until. That's a good
Okay.